Hello, everybody. I am Peter the Book Lover, and this is Book Talk, to where I talk about the last three books that I've read. These are all set in the land of Oz, and I want to talk about these books, and I hope you will enjoy hearing about these books. Let's talk about them. Hello, I'm Peter the Book Lover, and I like to read a lot of books, I like to collect books, and I like to talk about books. So I make videos to where I talk about the books that I read and the movies that I watch. And I do it in sets of three because I feel like that's a good, interesting number to do these in. And all these books are set in the land of Oz. They're all from this book that I've read here. I'm not through with the book, but this is the first five novels of The Wizard of Oz. And I'm going to talk about the first three. And I'm going to have a good time talking about it, and hopefully we will have a good time as I talk about this. But before I get into the video, I want to thank everybody that's here. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and thank you for checking out my channel. I appreciate every single viewer. Thank you. Okay, let's get into this. Now, the first book that I have here is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. This was written in 1900, and this was written by L. Frank Baum. And this is the first story of The Wizard of Oz. Now, you might be a person that's actually seen the movie A Wizard of Oz. Chances are you have, because it's a very famous movie. Most people that enjoy movies have seen it. Although, who knows? You might be a person that hasn't watched The Wizard of Oz. And if you haven't, this is pretty interesting. And maybe you're a person that watched Wizard of Oz but haven't read the books. Now, if you haven't read the books, I'm going to talk about the book, but I'm also going to mention some things that are in this movie. So let's just get into this. Okay, we're going to start it off. Now, this is a story about Dorothy Gale and her dog Toto. And she has an aunt and an uncle. Aunt M and Uncle Henry. And she lives in Kansas. And it's the gray Kansas prairie. And things just like the movie, it's a pretty gray area. It's not very, there's not a lot of trees and flowers and stuff. It's pretty much a deserted land. And our story isn't like the movie. In the movie, she sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and you actually meet not the witch, but the ultimate character of the witch. But in the book, she just goes into her house while there's a tornado, and she's in the house trying to hide from the tornado, and she actually falls asleep. And it sucks her up into the air, and then the house goes to the land of Oz, and the house lands on the Witch of the East, and it kills her, and she leaves behind a pair of silver slippers. Now, when she first wakes up and she comes out of the house, she meets some munchkins and the Witch of the North. And she asks them, I'm stuck out here. How do I get home? And they said they can't help her to get home. All they could do is guide her to the Emerald City, to where they could talk to the marvelous Wizard of Oz, and maybe he has the power to help her get home. And they said, if you want to find this wizard, you've got to follow this road of yellow bricks. In the movie, they call it the Yellow Brick Road, but in the book, they call it the Road of Yellow Bricks. And they say, you follow this road of yellow bricks, and it will lead you to the Emerald City. So Dorothy decides to take these shoes because they fit her very well, and she takes these silver slippers, and then she goes on her way to the Emerald City. Not much longer, as she's on her way, she meets the first character of this story, and that is the Scarecrow. Now, the Scarecrow is on a pole, and she helps him down off of this pole, and then she starts talking to him, and she finds out that he was put together by some farm people, and they painted a face on him. So in the movie, he could have expressions with his face, but in the book, he really can't. His face doesn't move. It's like, he can't shut his eyes. He can't blink. His lips don't move. But he starts talking to her, and turns out that he doesn't have a brain, and he really wants a brain, and he thinks he's going to be smarter if he had a brain. And Dorothy said, well, I'm on my way to the wizard to help me get home. Maybe he could help you by giving you some brains. The Scarecrow says, sure, that's a great idea. So they go off together, and they head on their way to the Emerald City. Now, as they're going along, they go on for a night, and then they have to spend the night, and they find this log cabin, and they spend the night in the log cabin. And when they wake up in the morning, they found the owner in the house is actually a Tin Man. They got kind of stuck, he's actually frozen because his joints rusted. And they help him and get this oil, and they free him. And then he tells them his origin story. He actually was a human being. He was in love, and he actually was put together. First he lost a leg, then he lost another leg, and every time that he lost a limb, they replaced it. And he eventually came to the point to where he was completely now a tin person. And when they put him together without a heart. And he feels like he really wants a heart. So they say, hey, we're on the way to the wizard in Emerald City, and maybe he could help you with a heart. So the Tin Man agrees to go with them, and they head on their way. Not long on their journey of following the road of yellow bricks, they actually run into kind of a jungle area. And in this jungle, they meet another character, a lion. Now, this lion actually feels like he's a coward. And all the other animals, he feels that he's afraid. And he doesn't have any courage. And it turns out that he wants courage. So they say to him, if you really want some courage, maybe you could find it with the wizard. And he actually thinks it's a good idea, so he joins them on this quest. Now, on the way to the Emerald City, they actually run into some problems, and there's a character in the book that's not in the movie. There's these mice, and this mice is in a lot of trouble, and they save this mice, and then this mice actually makes a promise to help them later because she is the queen of the mice, and the mice actually wind up helping them before they get to the Emerald City. Then they get to the Emerald City. Now, it's a little bit different in the book than it is in the movie because when they get to the Emerald City, they have to wear these glasses when they get there, which is not in the movie. And there's no horse of the different colors, and there's none of that stuff. They don't even meet the wizard until a little bit later. It's a little bit different in the book because in the movie, they actually meet him all at the same time, and they talk to him at the same time. But in the book, they each have to wait a day to see him. And as each person sees him, he takes on a different form for each of these people. And the last one to see him is Dorothy. And Dorothy actually says she wants to go home. And he says, I can't help you unless you kill the Witch of the West. And they don't want to do it, but the only choice they have, he says, I'm not going to help you unless you kill the witch. So they wind up agreeing to go after the witch. So the difference in the book than in the movie, the witch in the book is a one-eyed witch. And she's got great powers of observation. And she sees them coming from afar off. And she sends various things to attack them. I don't want to give away what these are, just in case you haven't read the book. I don't want to give away too much. But she sends these things after them. And they fight them. And they wind up defeating her the same way in the movie. I don't want to give it away, but... And at the same time, you actually meet the flying monkeys. But they wind up defeating her, and then they go back to the wizard, and they find out the secret of the wizard. I don't want to give anything away because if you haven't read this, but the wizard isn't what he appears to be. And then I didn't write the notes of this until afterwards, but not long after they wind up meeting some porcelain people that's not in the movie. And it's a pretty interesting place. They go to this place with these porcelain people. And then afterwards, they run into Galinda, which is this powerful sorceress that explains to Dorothy and how she could get home. And then Dorothy actually uses this method to get home, and she goes home. And that's pretty much my summary of the story. There's a lot more detail than I'm not giving to you, but I'm actually kind of like leave a lot out because I want you to discover it by reading the book. But that is a good summary of what happens in this story. Now, my opinion of this story is that I think this is a wonderful story. I've read this 4 times, and every single time that I've read it, it's an amazing book. Please excuse the cats. I've got cats just making noise all the time. Every time I want to film a video, these cats make themselves be heard. But I love them. I love all my cats. I've got 4 gray cats, and they're all wonderful. But back to what I was saying, I really love this story. It's an amazing story. I've read it 4 times, and I enjoyed it every single time. I highly recommend this book. It is the best one of the books that I've read so far. But the next books that I'm going to talk about are very good as well. Almost as good, but this one is just, if you just read this by yourself, you're going to be completely satisfied because this is a wonderful book. An amazing imagination by L. Frank Baum. Highly recommended. Okay, so the next book doesn't have Dorothy in it. This one came out in 1904, and this is The Marvelous Land of Oz, or it's also known as The Land of Oz. And this is a story that is about a character named Tippetarius, but they do not call him Tippetarius in this book. They call him Tip. And this guy Tip has a guardian named Mombi. And Mombi is a witch, and she's a vile person, and you discover that pretty quickly. And at the beginning of this book, he wants to play a joke on Mombi by making this character. He takes a wooden body, builds a wooden body, and then he puts a pumpkin head on it. And he leaves it in the road to scare her. But when she runs into this pumpkin head, she decides to put this magic powder on him that she just got from this wizard, and she brings this Jack Pumpkinhead to life. And then she actually tries to punish Tip for trying to scare her, and she's going to punish him by turning him into a statue. But Jack the Pumpkinhead and Tip actually team up together, and they wind up escaping Mombi. And not long after, they decide that they want to go to the Land of Oz. They really don't have a purpose of going there. They really say, hey, what else are we going to do? So they decide to go to the Emerald City. And at the Emerald City, it turns out that the Scarecrow, because in the last book, the Scarecrow actually became the King of Oz. So he's not really the king, he's the steward of Oz, but he's got the impression that he's the king. And on the way, they actually, I can't remember if they built it or they found it, but they found a sawhorse, or they built a sawhorse, and they sprinkled the same powder, because they wind up stealing this powder, and they pour it on the sawhorse, and the sawhorse actually becomes alive and becomes a character, and they wind up riding this sawhorse to the Emerald City. And at the same time, the Scarecrow is the king of the land of the Emerald City. So they go to the Emerald City, they meet the Scarecrow, they become friends with her, and then at the same time, they get invaded by this army led by General Ginger. And it's an army of females, and they have like these pins that they could stab you with. And they wind up taking over the land of Oz. Not the land of Oz. They wind up taking over the Emerald City, and the Scarecrow actually gets chased away. So they actually go on a journey to find the Tin Woodmen to help them recapture the city. Now, I can't remember if it's before or after, but I think they go and meet the Tin Man, and they get together, and on their way back, or some part of the story, they run into another character, and this is the Wogglebug. Now, the Wogglebug is this bug that was actually enlarged, so he's a bigger sized bud, and he is highly magnified, and he is thoroughly educated, because when he was a Wogglebug, he actually spent some time in a classroom, and he's actually an educated bug. And they wind up being friends with him, and he joins them on their journey, and they want to come back to the city and take it, and they are on their way to find Glinda to help them. And on the way to find Glinda, I can't remember exactly because I didn't write my notes before doing this video, but I mean, I didn't take these notes as I was reading the book. I did these notes after I've read this book. So, but they make this thing called the Flying Gump. Now, the Flying Gump is like these two couches they put together, and it's got the head of like kind of a moose. It's called the Gump, but it's kind of like a deer or a moose, and they put this, it's a trophy head, and they put it on the front. They put these two couches together. Then they put a broom for a tail, and they have these like really big leaves they use as wings, and they spray this powder on the Flying Gump, and it actually flies. And they go to Glinda, and Glinda actually helps them take back the Emerald City from General Ginger. And at the same time, Mumby actually winds up joining with General Ginger, and they actually defeat Mumby and General Ginger together, and there's an end to this movie. Now, the end of this movie, there's an end to this book, and I really don't want to give away the ending. The ending is kind of like a surprise ending to me. I was really amazed of the ending of this, and at the end of this book, you actually meet Ozma of Oz, and how you are introduced to this character is really cool. It's kind of a surprise. I don't want to give it away, but as you're reading this book, know that the ending is a surprise. And it really, I didn't expect the ending to be what it is. There's a twist at the end of this that's really interesting, and I really enjoy it. I'm not going to give it away, so if you want to know what this twist is, I highly suggest reading this book. And my opinion of this book is that it is fantastic. I really, really enjoyed The Marvelous Land of Oz. It was a great adventure. The amazing thing is it's like different characters. It's totally different than the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, but it's just an exciting, and I really love the imagination of L. Frank Baum. He's got an incredible imagination, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, that's that book, so I highly recommend it. And let's go to the next one. The next book is a book that was written in 1907, and that is Ozma of Oz. Of course, it's written by L. Frank Baum, and how this starts is Dorothy is on a ship with Uncle Henry, Aunt Em is back in Kansas, and they're on this ship, and they wind up she winds up getting lost at sea. Henry stays on the boat, and she winds up being on this crate that gets lost to sea. And she winds up washing up on shore. And when she washes up, I believe, well, either she washes up at shore or before she washes up on shore, she meets this hen that's on this crate with her. And this hen is a talking hen. She's amazed that she's talking to this hen. And this hen was named Bill, but Dorothy said, you know what I mean, because it's a female. Dorothy says, I don't think you should be Bill anymore. You should be Belinda. And she becomes Belinda. And this character right here is an amazing character. I think this hen is a wonderful character. You know, Toto is not a part of this story, but Belinda is. And Belinda is a great replacement. She's a talking animal, which makes her interesting. And she's also a character that lays an egg every day. Now, she doesn't lay an egg so she could make it a child, so she doesn't hatch the eggs unless she wants to, but every day she has to lay an egg. And a lot of times she will give you her egg for breakfast so it doesn't go to waste. Or she'll just leave it and it rots, but she has to lay an egg. And she's a talking hen, and she's an amazing character. I really love her. She's a fun character. And as they're on shore, they actually see this sign saying, beware of the whalers. So on this island, they find these trees that have these lunches on the island. And she takes one of these lunches, and that brings the whalers after her. So the whalers go after her and Belinda, and they escape, and they go inside a mountain, and they find this other character. Now, this robot, his name is TikTok. And it's kind of funny that we use TikTok all the time, but this is a robot that you have to wind up. You got to wind him so he thinks, then you got to wind him to move, and then you got to wind him for another reason. There's three reasons. They find this key, and they use this key to wind this character up. And he's another cool character. I really think that he's a very cool character. So then they decide to go to the land of Ev to see what they could do next, because this is the land of Ev. So they go to the land of Ev, and instead of the king of Ev being there, they run into another character that's in charge, and that's Langwidere. Now, Langwidere is a person that has a collection of heads, and every day she wears a different head. It's pretty cool. And the thing about it is, when she sees Dorothy, she wants Dorothy's head. But Dorothy's like, you can't have my head. So she locks her up in a tower. And as Dorothy is locked up in a tower, Ozma of Oz is actually coming there to free the people of Ev. And she wants to take power from Langwidere. And she's on this parade of people. There's an army of soldiers with her. The Tin Man's with her. The Scarecrow's with her. The Cowardly Lion is with her in the front. Plus, there's another character. And this one is one of my favorite characters. I really like this character, the Starving Tiger. Now, this is a tiger that's always hungry, that's always looking for food, but the tiger has a conscience, so it doesn't eat as much as it wants to. It won't eat a baby because he has a conscience, which is a pretty cool concept of this character. But yes, they all get together. She reunites with the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, and they decide to go to save the people of Ev. And they go to this mountain, and one of the things they run into that's a really cool part of the story is this giant with a hammer. It's this metal giant, and it's got a hammer. And they get past that, and then they go into this mountain, and they found the Gnome King. And the Gnome King is this kind of, he looks like Santa Claus, but not really. And he's kind of a tripped out character. He's threatening, but he's like not completely evil. But was a really interesting character. He's very mischievous. And they go to save the people of Ev. And I really don't want to give away how they save the people of Ev, but they do these things to free the people of Ev. And they free the people of Ev. And then at the end of the story, Dorothy wants to go home again. And there's a method they use to get her home that's different than in the first movie. And that's pretty much my summary of it. And that is Ozma of Oz. Now, my opinion of this book, this is just as good as the other two books. I really enjoyed this book a lot. It was a lot of fun. I really loved Belinda. She is an amazing character. The Starving Tiger is another really cool character. And also, I really enjoyed TikTok. TikTok is a fantastic character as well. I really love these books. These are fantastic, and I highly recommend them. I also recommend the movie The Wizard of Oz. And, I really think that if you haven't seen Wizard of Oz, it is an amazing movie. Just the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow is enough for you to see it. And just the fact of the matter is that you could watch this. I really love the way it goes from black and white to color. And that's a brilliant idea. Also, if you could also listen to Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon and sync it up with this movie, and that's another experience you could have as well. The Wizard of Oz is an amazing experience and an amazing movie, and I highly recommend it. And that's about it for this episode of Book Talk. And that's about it. Now, if you enjoyed me talking about these books, I really would appreciate if you hit the like button. The like buttons are like gems to me, and they mean a lot. So, if you hit the like button, thank you very much. And if you have any opinions, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Those comments are wonderful. And if you haven't subscribed and you like my content, please subscribe. I make new content all the time, and I would love to be talking to you in the future. If not, that's okay as well. But yes, I would really appreciate your subscription. And that's all. I hope you have a nice day. I am Peter the Book Lover, and I thank you for coming by. See you in the next video.